Hi guys, this is going to be a series on various little quick techniques inside of Rhino. First we're going to go over points, and then we're going to go over lines, and then we're going to go over surfaces. They'll each be a different video, and I hope you'll enjoy. After that, I will go over some techniques using this type of methodology. Anyways, in this first one, we're going to start out with points. It's over here on the left, and points is pretty much your most important thing in Rhino. You use them in control points, you use them in point clouds. They're pretty essential in doing a lot of things, but it's kind of the way we're going to do this. We're going to start out with points, we're going to go all the way to surfaces, and then come back to points. So first of all, let's just show what a point is. Point is just a dot in space. Now if we think about points being things to make up lines, we can say, well, with a two-point line system, we can create a line through those points like this. Alright, and this is very important. You see up here it says 7 degrees. That's the degree of the curve, and it's interpolating between them. That means it's going through them, not around them. Anyways, see, our biggest tool in Rhino is the rebuild tool. So if we go ahead and type rebuild, we can analyze that curve and see it on here. It says it has 7 points. It has 8 points with a degree of 7. Alright, so that means if we turn the control points on for this line, as we see here, we click that and hit the control button over here, we see that it has 8 points on it, and then the curvature of it is 7. Now you can't really see this very well if you haven't seen the different degrees of curves, but basically if it's over 1, that means it has a little bit of curvature to it. Anyhow, bring that back, and that's the essential use of points. Now let's look over the rest of the points here. So with this first one, it's a single point, the second one's a multi-point, and this is extract points. This can be very useful when dealing with surfaces. When you have a surface like this and you grab the control points, as you see here, it's got 4 points on it. Just like its control points, it can be moved up and down. So that's how the points affect the surface. Alright, now what's really great about this is, say with our surface here, we can rebuild it and see the parentheses here on the left. This is how many points it has, and we can call that 4 and 4. Okay, now when we turn those control points on, you see it's a 4 by 4. Let's go back around here. Oh, that's the degree. So we don't want that degree down to 2. 2 by 2 at 4 and 4. So that means it's going to be 16 points. And we'll see that. And now we see 4 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's 16 points there. So for instance, if we took this middle part, we could start forming a bump up in that center of that piece right there. And see, that's very nice. So we can start seeing that curvature. Alright. And then of course, you can always, at any point in the game, you can always extract these points again. What I always do is move everything over a nominal amount, say 20. That doesn't work, it sits on top, so let's do 50. Okay, so as we see over here, and what we can do from here is we can say other things, like for instance, we can draw a line through these, except draw a line through these, draw a line through these. And if you think about this in fabrication techniques, these are simply your curves, because we can lock that back together. And now we just reinterpolated that a little bit differently. As you see, this used the lines as a methodology of sweeping through it, and this used it as control points for the surface. So as you can see, if we look at that surface, those control points are higher in the air, and because it was sweep, it doesn't have the rational ability of this other one. But we can always drop that down. Say we look at that, we know the other one is, see, it saved our settings, and we can look at it like that. And so that's got the same rational ability as the other surface. If we look here, it has the same number of points, it's just raised up using that surface. So this is a good way to think about, if you say, look, this one was derived from this one, that kind of means that these are like cousins of each other. Like this is a morphology of this one over here. This is very important in design. So you can come into this one and say, maybe I want to rebuild that with 8 on each side. So I can manipulate the center of that to give it a depression in, or shelling, so to speak. So we can go in here and grab these guys and move them down. Let's just say to that point. So now we have this depression in the middle of it. So what's important here is that you realize that all this one is different from this one, is that there's some steps missing between them. So you would say, it would be this surface, which has still got the 4, and then of course we copy that over 50. Then this surface would be rebuilt 8 by 8, like we said, and then we copy that over again, copy that piece over again, 50. Okay, now we're seeing the actual parent tree of this, and it's showing us how the morphologies of this original one morphed and changed into this one. So we raised it by using the sweeps, which of course it would be more like this. So we performed the removal of the control points, we sweeped it, we increased the number of points on the surface, we depressed it. So if we look at it this way, we can start to see a development of morphologies from that original one. This is real important. Alright, so now we can go back to lines. For instance, here, there's some other things we can do that are interesting. Move this one over to 50. And so say we have these surfaces here, and we want to get another line out that we can use as a deformer. So we'll take one of those pieces right there out, that piece right there. Set that, move that guy over. We know those lines are the same. So okay, so there he is. Now one interesting thing we can do of using lines and points together is we can deform a line in order to deform another line. For instance, we can take these 2 points here, move them down to base, make sure your points are alright. Or we can let's just move it down a little crazy so we can get a little love out of it. Alright? So now what we can do is there's a neat tool over within the transform tools. I usually like taking the UD tools out too and just having this around a lot. There's this one called follow curve. This can be used in lots of different ways. I'll show in another one how to use it with a script. Scripts are basically what we're doing right now, just without actually creating a function without it. So usually a script has a function that basically says that when it's going through the given set of commands, it will actually go back within those commands and repeat itself. So that's the basis of script. Anyway, so for instance here, but you can mimic this in just all reality. So I'll always think that you don't actually have to script in order to do things like a script. So one thing I like to do here is I like taking these points here, and you can flow these across excuse me, it's an array. That's the one you use. You go here in the array section. There's array along line, and so you can grab those points and you can array them across that line, which causes this very, very strange occurrence here. See, now you're starting to see that line being copied, and then you start getting this very smooth bubbling shape because of the way it's arraying. So if you lock these together, well, essentially if you lock these together, you can start to see a very strange shape coming out. See, this is a little messed up because of the lofting. Probably due to the fact I picked the wrong one at one point in time. So if we loft there, see, we see smoothness. So we'd go through there and pick out the right ones. Alright, that's one way of doing this. That's probably kind of a cheating way. The other way to do this is to think about it. Let's just think about this in lines. We can come and analyze this with lines and pull lines out of it. So one of the interesting areas of here is the line, curve from object. One of my favorite is the contour. So we can come in here and contour the object, and up here it tells us how many space between them do we want. So 10's fine. So see, we got 3 out of there. That's not really enough for me. I'd like a little bit more. And so that's base to base, and we'll say 1. That's a little too much. And now we'll say 5. That's enough. Let's move those out. 50 feet again. Guess my angle is off a little bit because it didn't get the whole surface there, but oh well. So now we'll look at those with their control points on it. See, now there's tons of them. Those really won't do. We can't really use those very much because we can't manipulate them that easily. So we'll rebuild that. And let's just look at 1 first. So they're at 52. I bet you we can get to 10 and not miss a thing. See, 10 didn't change anything. Yeah. So now we look at that, and it's only got 10 points. That's pretty fantastic. I like that. So what we'll do is we'll highlight all those. Bless me. And then we'll turn those all into 10. Alright, and so now that they're all 10, we can start looking at them in control points. And say, you know, we just want this thing to fool around a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip. What you can do is you can flip. This is a tricky way to do this, but you can flip. You can grab out the control points like that. I would suggest grouping those, Control G. And then you can turn on the control points of 2, and we can move them over one by one. And see, we're starting to get a very nice pattern coming out of this. Alright. And you would do that across the board for those. Now, what's so interesting about this is you can take this out and analyze the surface, use it to change the surface. So we'll move that over 50, and we'll look in the top view, and we can pinch out that surface. We can project it first, I would suggest. It's projected. Most likely those are yeah, so it's projected exactly. See, it was already close. Now what we can do is we can trim that out. And now see, we have a nice little piece here, which is all separated. It doesn't even look like we have to use those center pieces. So now, see, now we can do that for a lot of them. And you know, and we can always kind of copy this and have a really nice look going on. And see, now it's also in this situation where you can figure out this dimension here, for instance, this dimension, and realize that this right here is simply just a half a position off. So we can copy it down and then move it over. So see, now see, we've created a situation when we're starting to create a pattern, which is really interesting to me, at least. You know, we start creating these patterns, and these can start forming situations. You know, see, we already have a situation where that looks fairly nice. You know, we can start to pipe these. Alright, so that's a neat situation dealing with that. Another possibility is what I call the one line technique. So we go over here and grab one of these lines. We'll copy her out here, whatever. This is just an example. And we'll go in there and we'll say, you know, I want to create this bubbling unit that comes off of here and comes up a little bit. So first of all, you know that you want the bubble to start here. So of course we'd copy that over. I would give it a nominal amount, say whatever that is, and then just move this one over. Make sure you don't have the other one selected. Move this over the same move this over a nominal amount too. Oh, don't be like me and make too many. Okay, there we go. Now we can see we can move that guy up in the vertical plane, the z-axis, or y-axis, whichever way you think. And now we see that bubble starting to form. Now we can do that with the other control points here. And tell you the truth, I'm going to go back and do this in the beginning. So we'll look at every other, and that's good enough. We'll move those over. Actually, we'll just copy those over. Oh, so we're still in the vertical. And then we'll copy, make sure you don't have them selected. And we'll copy those over right there. And now you can take those middle ones and then pull them up in the vertical. And see, now we can begin to have a nice surface like this. You know, so these nice cap surfaces like this can be really nice. You know, and of course there too, you're able to start to create a patterning system. You know. Which is very nice. You can start developing this into something that's fairly useful. As far as getting those exactly there, that is all within using the numbers. So, I mean, when you do that, exactness has to do with you calculating the distance between the two. And that's the one thing that's funny about scripting is that's all you're doing. It has a very beautiful sense to it, but when you actually use them, you start realizing, well, I could do this by hand. This is just a quicker way of doing it. And actually, they tell you when you're doing scripted to make sure you write everything out beforehand. So you know, they say it's a bottom up, but it's actually a frequency motion. They kind of know what's going to happen, especially these guys like Fournier and Roche. They kind of know what's going to happen in the beginning. And they do have a little bit sense of randomness, but not very. So there's that one. Let's look at that using a bit of a more curvature. I like going a little crazy with this. and getting it really curved out. So I mean, it's literally just taking this and getting it kind of moving around, you know. You can start developing this in the vertical more, you know, and see. You can start seeing that you can get these really nice shapes out of there just with playing around with that single line. So think about that when you're looking at context. Think about that, drawing that context and seeing where those lines of alignment are, and using that as some clue of how you can twist your program into that space. It's really nicely, can be really nicely done. Well, I think that's a long enough one for today, and I will be doing more of these, so please stay tuned. Bye-bye.